Now, a Texas chemical plant was hit by explosions after floods caused by Hurricane Harvey knocked out power supplies needed to refrigerate fairly volatile chemicals. The plant is owned by a French chemical company, Arkema SA. It was evacuated well in advance. The local area around it for miles was also cleared prior to those explosions. 2 explosions and a plume of black smoke were reported at about 2 a.m. local time at a plant which is located in Crosby. Arkema stores organic peroxides at several locations on the site, and the threat of additional explosions is still very real. The company evacuated remaining workers at the damaged plant on Tuesday, and Harris County ordered the evacuation of residents within a 2 to 4 kilometer radius of the plant. Arkema makes organic peroxides. They use in the production of plastic resins, polystyrene paints, and a range of other synthetic products as well. Let's get to the latest details from Houston. Hendrik Sibrandi joins us now from that particular city. Hendrik, so company officials are saying the best course of action here is to let any fires at the facility that do come up burn themselves out. Other than the logistical challenge of actually just getting to the site, why is that the best course of action here?
Well, they've obviously felt that that's based on all of the different alternatives that they've been looking at, that's the best course of action. As you alluded to, there is the safety issue for firefighters getting into the site itself to try to put the fire out. They've decided that all things considered, the best thing is to let it burn itself out. There's some different opinions on whether that's the best idea and just how dangerous the situation is. An official with the Federal Emergency Management Administration back in Washington, D.C. called this situation very dangerous, incredibly dangerous are the words he used. On the other hand, a fire chief in the immediate area of the plant who spoke to reporters this morning said that this was a relatively manageable kind of situation, that people in the area outside of that defensive perimeter that you referred to, the 2.5 kilometer defensive area, that people outside of that are in reasonably safe condition and that they shouldn't have to worry too much. So at this point, they are assuming that the other 8 containers, besides the one that had the 2 explosions this morning, they're assuming the other 8 containers are going to burn as well. But for the time being, they're standing back and just letting it burn until the situation is resolved.
Indeed. So there are also 3 distinct elements of the oil industry that's pretty much concentrated around Texas that's been affected by Hurricane Harvey. Crude production, transportation, refining and storage. How have these respective elements all been affected or damaged?
Well, they've all been affected, and particularly the refining capacity, which a lot of that is concentrated along the Gulf of Mexico, along Texas and Louisiana, and of course Hurricane Harvey took direct aim at those areas as it came ashore. So a lot of that refinery capacity is now down. About a third of U.S. refinery capacity is now offline. What has to happen now in the next few weeks is for oil companies and oil refiners to kind of gauge what the condition of their pipelines are, what the condition of their refiners are, and to really get a better idea of just how much has been affected here. But obviously when you take a third of the refining capacity offline, that's going to have an impact. It may not be immediate, but it could be felt several weeks or months down the line. The U.S., of course, exports a lot of oil now, which it didn't just a few years ago. So that's another impact for countries like Mexico and China and others. Brazil is another country. So the impacts will be significant. Whether they're immediate or not, that's another question. I think there's a period of evaluation going on right now.
Indeed, and of course all the traders we've spoken to have just said it's a bit too early to tell. One last question for you though. There's plenty of crude oil in storage in the US at the moment, but how have gasoline supplies been affected by the storm, and what measures are in place, if any, to actually plug those temporary supply gaps?
Well, inventories were at a 5-year high when this hurricane struck here in the U.S. So the U.S. at least was in pretty good shape in terms of how much gas was on hand. But of course, as we go along now in the next couple of weeks, that supply amount is going to diminish, is going to dwindle down to some extent. Prices here in the U.S. have come up about 4 or 5 cents, but not hugely yet, but that could still happen as more of this effect is felt. But for the moment, things are fairly stabilized. But I'm sure a lot of oil companies, gas companies are scrambling just to figure out where they're going to get supply from and how to get that to various areas, both in the U.S. and overseas in a timely fashion. Still an ongoing issue.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Hendricks and Brandy there live in Houston. Thank you for your time. To stay safe out there.